Well, we're here in Montreal at Blah Blah Studio, not live, but in person.
For the first time with proper
all three of us.
audio and lighting properly done on our podcast. Yeah.
Professionally, not with my $40 webcam and light in one. At home hanging off my laptop, which, by the way, 2020 MacBooks. That's not Mission Impossible worthy tech. Let me tell you, that battery dies fast. I could not Google Book of Job and find who I was looking for on that bad boy, I feel like some days. But we're here. We're talking about Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. We've now all seen it. Adriana 3 times.
Yeah.
Which has got to be like, you don't do movies this often in theaters.
Well,
even when they're ones you really like.
Sometimes, but not so close together. It was like 3 times within like
2 weeks,
a week or two.
A week and a half. And Brandon's the first time,
fresh faced. I was the only one in the group here, all 3 of us, who did not sit through 17 hours back to back. I watched a bunch of YouTube compilations, and I was very rewarded because the first hour of this is also a YouTube compilation. Lots of flashbacks, lots of context. So I feel good not wasting 17 hours. But that's my personal hot take.
Wasting 17 hours. Nick Chepley take out of the gate. Coming from the clouds. No, I think, I didn't want to tell you anything about the movie.
Yeah. You were stonewalling me the whole time.
I did not want to give an impression of how I felt. I didn't want to even talk about the critic, because again, the opening, which we'll get to, but I didn't even want to mention that. And then when you're like, I watched YouTube, but I literally was like, you didn't need to. You definitely would have got the juice.
I had this 7-hour drive down, and I was like, perfect. There's a YouTube series that does 30-minute digestible things of each mission movie.
Yeah.
And I came in pretty hot, being like, well, the second one had John Woo's flavor on it, but it was a little substance lacking. And you're like, hey, that's exactly what I said on the podcast. So yeah, it's good. I'm glad I could get up to speed. But yeah, it was.
I definitely, like I said, I don't know about doing that too often, but it was definitely a worthwhile Warner experience for me. But yeah, so I think the interesting part with this one, and we'll, I guess, do the same routine with the high level hot take out of the beginning. And then we'll dive into the spoilers, and we'll be quick on that because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
I really like it. I did my reviews already out at this point. But I loved it. But definitely flaws, which we'll get into, but not enough to derail my enjoyment. So overall, at the very least, I think for anybody that's even considering it, if you're even mildly interested in it, it's at least worth a watch in theaters. Definitely see it. And I know
big screen energy.
We harp this, big screen energy. We harp this a lot, but this is definitely a movie that you go exists for a movie theater and the biggest screen that you can get your hands on, basically. So that's my initial takeaways. What about you, Adriana? You saw the next most.
Yeah. Well, your biggest screen thing is really key, because I feel like seeing it in IMAX after seeing it not in IMAX was like seeing it for the first time again, truly. So if you can see it in IMAX, go see it in IMAX. I think it's a weird movie. I think it's probably has the highest highs and maybe lowest lows of this. Maybe not lowest lows, but it's very uneven to me, and I think that became most apparent after the third watch. I really feel the flaws in this, but those highs are so high. So I still had fun, enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I got to clarify right away because I have the most biased take, and on the podcast, Shea's always like, "Oh, bring your expectations. Stop watching trailers." It's the ongoing bit. But for the first time, I wasn't my brain chemistry or my heart or my emotions. It was my bladder. I purposely went into this trying not to drink as much fluids as I could for the hour leading in, because I knew this was 3 hours. I knew Shea got middle row IMAX with the most packed theater in Montreal. So, and I was I remember looking there, sweating, and I looked down the aisle and I see it is 40 people to the right and 35 people to the left. I counted. I'm like, oh, I'm locked in. And that first hour, we were alluding to, is a bit of a stretch to get through, So every time there was a guy in the movie that was like, we only got 20 minutes left, and I would check my watch, be like, okay. And then at 35 minutes from that point, we still have 4 minutes to defuse the bomb. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God, because my bomb was not being defused. So I enjoyed the movie largely, but there was always the ticking bomb in my head of, oh my God, I did not prep my bowels for this. I did not think I could sit through a 3-hour movie with like one Diet Coke from the fountain. Killed me within the hour of the first hour I was on. But it was largely enjoyable. However, yeah, my own personal bias of like every time the ticking clock started, I was like counting the minutes, and it was like, this is so exaggerated. Like it's an Mission Impossible. So, but my pet peeve kept coming up. So whenever the pacing slowed during a ticking clock, I was like, oh my God, because I had my own. But that's
just so I can weaponize it against you later. At what point in the movie were you like, I have to go to the bathroom?
I think the part where I thought, no, it's not so bad, was when the action finally started. When you see the knife fight on the treadmill in the sub, and that was like a really fun, engaging scene.
So I'd say comfortably that's like an hour
15
in there about that.
It was like right when I forget the guy's name in the movie, but Mr. Milchek from Severance shows up, and he was like my favorite because he was so suave and like, yeah, and I love that. So when that started happening, I'm like, okay, cool, it's going. Like, I'll be fine. I clearly, like, again, I prepped as much, like, by only having one drink going into the theater, I was like, oh, fine. But then I think the moment where I realized, ooh, there was still 2 hours left here was, when there's the Inuit lady giving directions. And I cite that as the moment where I was like, there was so much pressure on all these characters. And there was like a small laugh from Milchek saying like, oh, it's a suicide mission? Okay. Like it was a funny bit where he's like, oh, it was never part of the plan.
Yeah.
Love that. And then it cuts to the Inuit directions and it's like literally like phonetic, like, ooh, and I got to get myself in trouble. But yeah, it was just like, it slowed the pacing down and everyone kind of laughed. Also seeing this in a French theater, hilarious. Cause every time there was French dialogue or like very slapstick bits like that, theater erupted. And like in Toronto, the Toronto mans would not have like clapped along as much. I don't think
it was so much more. That part of it was so much more pronounced. I felt like in Dead Reckoning because I felt like Cruise's accent wasn't as dialed in.
Oh yeah.
And so like he's like, ooh, Sevastopol, and the theater lost their minds. And so like it was definitely there a little bit, but I was like, he definitely did accent work between movies because that definitely got polished up in this one. But yeah, I think we'll dive right into it. I think for me, the opening section is definitely like I wrote in my review, I felt like this was the first movie in the franchise that my experience like as a fan was actively hurt at the expense of people that are not, not even as into this or just like fans of the franchise that didn't need those reminders. And like the philosophy I feel like worked before, I think I mentioned this on our recap when we went through the big marathon, but the philosophy that McHugh brings to those movies is that like you don't need to have watched all of the other ones to be able to enjoy this one. And I feel like that worked fine in Fallout, and even ones where he did bring back characters like his wife in Fallout and things like that never was a problem. And I didn't feel like showing her at the beginning of that, like, oh my God, like it didn't do anything. And this was like, we straight up, like you said, a montage at the beginning. It's like, you've sacrificed so much for the country over the years. And
insert all the sacrifices.
All the things, like all the set pieces, all the villains, like they show everything. I will say my favorite part about that is getting to see Philip Seymour Hoffman on a big IMAX screen a couple times. They flash with him.
All the mask rips, especially that one. And it's like,
So I was like, it just was the one that, and the other theme I kind of like touched on in my review, as I said, like I tried to be vague. Like I didn't want to say just seemingly trying to wrap up the franchise is what caused the problem. But I said like the weight of the title was felt throughout, and that definitely was discouraging like overall, because it like that first hour, again, like ballpark, like a lot of it was mission forward stuff, but there was a lot, not even the first hour and the backups, but I feel like there was so many moments where they just flash back to a previous movie, to something happened that 2 minutes ago.
The bit that got me was like, you're flashing back to something that happened 5 minutes ago, and probably the biggest flaw of the whole movie to me is the hand holding. Like they go way too far with it of just like here's what you need to know. Here's all these like flashbacks. Like some of them get shown multiple times, like the same ones. The shot of what's his name, Donlo walking into the vault and the knife and stuff. They show that I think like 3 or 4 times before you like see him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of slows things down and feels a little, I don't know, like, come on, just like trust your audience.
Yeah. Well, I felt that a lot too. And like you said, oh, the weight of the titles felt. And I'm like, because they drop that friggin' weight like every 5 minutes. It's like, you know, they explain the plan Mission Impossible style, like in a heist type way. And then they're like, everybody know what we're doing. And we've seen flash forwards of him being pulled from there. Like they're really visually doing the Mission Impossible thing. And as they're about to go, it's like hand on shoulder, like, Ethan, this is your destiny. And then before they do it, it's like another beat where it's like, just know it's up to you now. It's like, we've known this for 45 minutes and now we've known this for another 3 minutes. And like, so it's, and I get it, but yeah, we're like the weight of the title. I'm like, no, dude, it's like, they're insisting it's the, and it was good, but
I think the intent of that, those moments you're touching on specifically are actually the only amounts of character moments we get, which there is sparingly few of those as well. But like because like, those moments aren't to reaffirm in the audience, even with the much hand holding as there is in this movie, because we get plenty of those. Like, I feel like that when they lay out those missions, they're very well done. Like, you're very clear on what's going to happen. Like, maybe you have like, wait, why did they have? And we can talk it out after, but they're very clear on the layout. But then those in between moments where they have this clarity where they're like, this is an impossible mission. They don't say that, but it's like, well, they say every word but impossible.
They do say like there's a 1 in 100 millionth chance that we find Ethan. And it was just like, and in my head, I keep like, I've been listening to Limp Bizkit Take a Look Around song and that little down, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like it's getting there. But yeah, when they insist on like how impossible it was for the 3rd time, I was like, I was getting hyped, and now you've derailed my hypeness because it's like, I just want to get to the next set piece. Yeah. Because I had to pee as well pretty bad. That's on me. It's on me.
Well, I'm definitely going to get you a corner seat, and then like you won't sit with us for the next one just in case of an emergency, so you can dip in and dip out.
I'm just saying for the eyes at home, I'm like a largely built 6'4" man, and I don't have a small body by any means, but it was just like the liter of Diet Cola was like my
it crushed you. It crushed you.
I couldn't figure that one out. I've never been one like on a road trip, but for whatever reason, I was even like, oh, I don't want to hydrate too much. I think even at your place waking up, it was like I got an iced coffee. My first liter of Diet Coke.
Came back with a full tray of McDonald's drinks just for yourself.
Yeah, it was a water and ice cream. It was the 4 horsemen of being hungover: water, ice cream, iced coffee, and a Diet Coke. And I said, like, specifically, I just got to drink this now at noon, fast until the theater. And I went to the bathroom twice thinking like, cool, I'm locked in, I'm dialed in. And then I had like half that Diet Coke and a hot dog, a nice glizzy. And it's almost like the glizzy pushed my body into like overdrive. Like you're now rehydrated.
Live by the glizzy, die by the glizzy.
Amen. Dude. That's the first piece of merch.
Hard. But yeah, like again, like even I think I said in my Letterboxd vlog for the 4th time I saw the movie that I was like, I don't think I've read a criticism that I disagree with.
Yeah.
Because there is absolutely definitive flaws in this, and the only question to me is like, how much does it bother you? And like you know, like I'm obviously definitely not like a mainstream case, because it's again like I've watched I did the marathon recently, but I've seen all of those movies a lot, so like I'm usually kind of forgiving when I'm like, again, like I'd Fallout, like I thought there was like, oh, okay, like it was organic, it felt right in that movie. But then this one I'm like, good lord, like if you never saw the movie, they really make sure you know certain scenes. Like you said, before we even see his character come back, we see Dunlo like I think it's 3 times in the movie, and then they show us again. I think it was when they're on the plane together.
I kind of wonder if that was like a like test audiences, like didn't, because people, even with all of those flashbacks, because he's older and has the beard and stuff, and like no one remembers his name. But they like, I feel like not enough people clicked into the fact that it was the same guy until the plane, when Ethan is like, we met 30 years ago or whatever. But it's like, I think that's an audience problem. Not like you shouldn't cater to those people.
And this is where, like, this is the first time I feel like I've seen the flaw in the McQuarrie crew's approach here, because it was, if this was just another mission movie, this all would have not been in there. I feel like a lot of this could have been omitted, things that they did, which like we'll cover too, but like that were just seemingly to like link back to things that
like
didn't
mild
really need
retcons
it.
to like MCUify it, where it's like, remember that first movie? It turns out there was a QR code on the poison.
Exactly.
And
like
as somebody who didn't watch the movies leading in, I was like, no shot. Did they impose that? Was that there? Can you remember? Was there a QR code on the poison from the rabbit's foot or whatever?
Yeah.
I was like, this is a bit of stretch. Like, I get it, but like you're like, they were imposing a lot more importance on the earlier stuff.
They're trying to tie the entire series in when like there's very clearly a shift that happens after the third, fourth movie of like those first four movies are so disconnected from each other. They don't even really try.
Well,
like,
even the fifth one, right? Like when McQuarrie comes in and like it's his own thing. So those first five movies are very distinct from each other.
But like I would understand it a bit more if they had tried to like put a cap on the McQuarrie era and just tie back to things that happened from the fifth movie on. But by trying to encompass the whole franchise, it just like buckles a little. You can feel the strain of like trying to tie a neat bow on top of all 8 of these movies.
Yeah, and that's like the weight of the title bit again, where it's just like I don't know, like in this, like to end this franchise, like, or like, you know, certainly this era of it, because there will inevitably be some sort of, whether it's Cruise again or some other element to it that the Paramount's going to reboot, but like the necessity to end it, like I don't know, frankly. Like I don't have a good idea on a suggestion of like how to do that in a satisfying way. But like to me, like you could have had a similar-ish actual ending, but just kind of also kept it like within like that mission formula that they I think we both agreed, I don't know where you were at, but like on Fallout, where they more or less perfected that formula in our opinion.
Fallout would be my number one.
Right.
When I was listening to your podcast, I also like with the Henry Cavill fight, and all that, it was like it was a cut above, and I think back to the whole franchise, I feel like I remember that one way better. Like
yeah, because to me, if you just had another really fun, like no kind of complaints really mission movie that ended them with them parting ways, like I'm fine with that. Like that would work for me. I don't need this to be like tied up in a certain way, but like I feel like the only person that might have, like, for me, it's like the ending is really hard, but I feel like it's only for me. Like I feel like if they did basically that same ending, but this was just another general mission movie, that would have worked for more people. But like to me, the lingering problem I have with it is that like Ethan, as long as he is alive, he will always be trying to do stuff, right? Because like that's the whole setup with the third movie, is that like the fourth movie, that their marriage didn't work out because something bad would happen in the world, and like he would want to be with his wife, and she was like feeling bad, like, oh my god, if he could have been there. Like that's the whole setup. So it's like as long as he's breathing, and even the end monologue from Luther says like the world needs you, and I was like, this does not feel final in its actual final moments. The finality feels like, again, that very thin at times thread that you weave through all the movies to try to connect them for like no reason. But I don't know if you guys have anything on that, but I wanted to touch on the specific beats.
We should definitely get specific, because I want to rag on the ending as well, but I feel like we have so many things to talk about.
Let's touch on next the specific things they do to Link, because so the rabbit's foot component of this really worked for me. I like, because it's also not mega specific, like it's not like a huge thing, so it's just kind of like a neat thing to pay off like the whole thing. And I thought that was like that. Like I remember elbowing you, like hee hee hee. Like I giggled like a kid. I'm like, that works. It's natural. It fits. But I don't know. Like you asked me last night because you're like, was the anti-god like a thing in that movie? And I'm like, oh, definitely, because that's when Benji, because they're like, because again they're talking like, what is the rabbit's foot in the movie? And they're like, I don't. He's like, oh, we always just called something like that the anti-god, and it was a line in that. But yeah, so like linking that together really worked for me.
I think that was one of the biggest like loose threads that because they even
easy to clean up,
tease it of like you'll find out eventually what it really is or whatever.
Yeah,
like in the third movie, I think. So
yeah, I think Lawrence Fishburne's like, if you stay, I'll tell you. And then he's like, and then he leaves. So you never get that conclusion. So I thought that one really worked. The Shea Wiggum one was the one in my review though that I really criticized. And I've read stuff like a lot of like just on Twitter that like a lot of people that were like, I don't get the drama about that. And I'm like, oh, well, like it, well, because I think the heavy one was, I keep forgetting, what was the last Star Wars, the 9th one? It was like Return of the Sith or
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of
Skywalker. It's when you find out, I don't care spoilers, when you find out that Rey is actually Rey Palpatine. And at the end, she's like, I'm a Skywalker now.
Yeah. And so I saw like our initial reactions were comparing this movie to, I think like some people were talking about it, comparing the movie to a combination of, I think, The Dark Knight Rises and The Rise of Skywalker or whatever. And
oh my
I'm
God,
like,
that's so good though.
Overstating though to me the significance of the Shea Wiggum reveal, which again, the reveal for anyone that hasn't seen it but is listening to this spoiler-filled podcast, is that he is also called Jim Phelps, the main character from the 1960s TV show, and John Voight's character from the first movie that dies. And it was so out of left field. And the justifications, like I read, because like I'm like, okay, like I didn't like it, but like what is it? What are the people saying? They're like, oh, it was set up in the last movie, or like it delivers. It is not specifically, but it is literally the singular most throwaway bit. It's when they arrive at Abu Dhabi and the guy's like, he's like, so what's your issue with this guy? And he's like, oh, I never met him. And he's like, but it is personal. And Shea Wiggum looks at him and then they keep going. That's it. So they imply some level of history, but there's nothing else in that movie that indicates what that is, and it's completely irrelevant to his motivations or his actions. And they're like, well, that's why it makes him so singular. And I'm like, but he would, if he's like a government lackey that's just trying to get Ethan because he doesn't follow orders and he's an order follower, he doesn't need a motivation to be like that.
Well, because he says like, I have no problem with you gambling millions of human lives if you did it by the book. And
well, like, if you were following orders when you did it.
Yeah, it was very like that guy and like the trope, right? Of like you're a loose cannon. Tom Cruise. Ethan Hunt.
You're something of a maverick, Ethan Hunt.
Oh
well, but that's what doesn't work about it for me, is it's so pointless and has no impact on anything.
Agreed.
Like it's just there so that Ethan can kind of get emotional about his past, which we don't need that. And then there's no the handshake, which
they turn into a bro.
So the ending spoiler
every single each viewing just could not help but laugh.
Because it could have gone either way, where you think it's like, oh, the drive's destroyed, you've betrayed your country, and he pulls the gun out at hip height like a Western,
right?
And I prayed he blew him away. I was like, give me some finality here. But instead,
shoot him, I gotta go to the bathroom.
He then like rotates the gun in a way that seemed a little artificial.
He turns like to pass it off or whatever.
I think, does he pass it to himself? And then he goes
he's got it in his right hand and he goes like this and swings his hand out.
So there's two things in this movie involving unholstering a firearm. It's that scene where he unholsters it to then take it out of his hand.
Well, he has it out when they walk up.
Okay,
because they don't know what happened. Right?
Okay, fair enough. And then the whole thing with that ending when he pulls the gun out, I was so excited. I thought it's going to be like a gut punch where he like nihilistically, Tom is like shot and left to die, because he keeps saying like, you live and die by the shadows, and it's just like, oh, maybe like you said, Dark Knight, where it's like, you're the hero we need but don't deserve. Like I was like, oh, finally some finality in the final reckoning. We should just call it Dead Reckoning Part 2. I have like so cheesed by the weight of the title because like, yeah, why be the final reckoning? And yeah, when he didn't get shot at the last moment, I was like, damn it. And then they wrap up, which we'll get to. But I definitely I keep saying Chief Wiggum, the Shea Wiggum of it all was like
so hard to remember his name. It's not like he's one of the co-hosts of the podcast. Even spelled the same. No. Like Wiggum? Again, like it doesn't pay off meaningfully, and again, like it gives Tom Cruise a nice moment, like that performance when he recounts that and on the plane with him, like Cruise is great, but it doesn't it like that to me. I'm like, this, I don't understand, like it didn't serve a significant enough plot point to justify anything. And it was, again, when you talk about the ending, which I didn't like, again, just even at the very end I didn't like, but even that build, like that is arguably the emotional payoff point of the ending, and it's purely contrived by a single scene, like handshake at the beginning that comes out of nowhere, right? Like that whole bit on the plane where he reveals, you're Jim Phelps, and then that only comes back around. I mean, at the very end with the handshake.
I wouldn't say that's the climax of the emotional resolution, or however.
Well, that sequence, I don't think there's a more bigger moment.
To me, that's like the climax is like Luther's like message and whatever.
I have a problem with the message too, by the way.
Oh God, yeah, go with that.
Okay, so the whole movie, everyone's like, it's destiny, it's fate, Ethan Hunt, that you got to save the world. You're literally Jesus. And then Luther's message at the end was like, you have free will. Like destiny is a fallacy. Like it's basically like live your life, don't feel beholden.
But that's been the whole series thing. It's like, should you choose to accept it? But then actually, you know,
then this whole movie is like
manifestation of destiny.
Okay, Alec Baldwin, yeah. Because because we were talking about that before the movie, where like that's when they leaned into that, where it's like it's almost like the Jesus Christ is Jason Bourne, but he's the living manifestation of destiny, Ethan Hunt. And then this whole movie has that same tone where it's like the president even is like, you know, everybody's leaning in that he's the only competent person on the globe to save the earth,
because
and he is. And that's why it's Mission Impossible. There's a 1 in 1 million chance that we find him in the Arctic. Like, and I get it, but it felt like his message at the end was sweet and sincere. I also at this point had to pee so bad that it was just like,
I would have rather you just got up at the hour-long moment right after the knife fight or right before, just run out of there, interrupt the movie for 40 other people so you can have a good time.
The scene when, like the first opening fight scene where they cut away from half the action to like a Looney Tunes bit where she's just like, ooh, no. Yeah. Watching him beat these people, like brutally beat them up too. Cause like, and I think somebody said, like, oh, did they run out of budget? Like, why'd they shy away? I'm like, oh, because they probably didn't want to show Ethan Hunt like murderizing, like stabbing, sawing, beating teeth in.
Yeah, they gotta keep that PG.
Yeah, and so like I thought it was like a cute gag. It didn't bother me as much, but I should have taken that moment to go to the bathroom because after that it goes straight back down to like surface level. Like, hey, the GOAT, hey, champ, hey, LeBron, Ethan Hunt, like it's your moment, buddy. And they keep glazing him for 30 more minutes. And then when I actually realized I was in trouble, it was like, oh, stuff's happening. We have Milchek. We're in the sub. There's a knife fight. Like, so anyways, but I was speaking of highlights because I feel like we're dwelling so much. Let's skip ahead to the first really big set piece. And I really want to get your like takes on the submarine stuff.
Okay.
It's like a 30-minute sequence with almost no dialogue, minus one really cringy line Adriana will point out. And it's like the episode of BoJack Horseman where it's like 30 minutes of silence and just like you feel the scale and the weight and this like impossible mission getting increasingly more impossible. And like when he descends down in the Arctic to find the submarine, it's like religious imagery of like a fallen angel in the dark. Like it was like intense and like you could feel like everybody start tensing up. And when it climaxes several times, like you said, the final one where like the stakes are at the utmost, like pull the zip cord, it's getting bad. The whole theater went, like, and even now I'm running out of breath describing it because I'm like, oh my God. So, because up until that point, like, again, talking about like the pissometer where I was like, I'm going to die. When that was happening, it was like I lost control of like my jaw.
You peed your pants, actually. That was the moment.
I really set myself up for that one. No, but like I no longer felt my legs. I was just like, holy cow, it was all in my brain and eyeballs enjoying
it. They should put that on the home video trailer. They'll be like, made me forget I had to pee.
Piss, yeah. 10 out of 10 on the pissometer.
Brandon Farmer Talkies.
Yeah.
No, I like that. That was the one. Like that scene snuck up on me, and I said this after too. Like I'm such an idiot because like as someone so deep into this, I should have expected that to be way more. But when it like they do a great job again, and this is again, I'll give the movie the credit with all of those talking scenes. They set up everything perfectly. You're aware of the stakes, you know what can go wrong, you know, like there's a lot of moving pieces and complications, but they're clear, and you know that, and so you know there's going to be all these problems. Just if this went completely smoothly, it's still like you're gonna be you're gonna have the shakes, all these like syndromes.
Well, even with the
pressure,
suit, they're like this is experimental.
It's gonna run out. It might not even work. We've only tested at 300. You're going 500. Like there's all of these wrinkles if this just went perfectly.
Yeah.
And then but still I'm like, okay, like that's like how are you gonna like okay, yeah, it's gonna suck and he's probably gonna like start twitching out or whatever, and it's like, but how are you gonna draw that out? And then in classic Tom Cruise McQuarrie fashion, the sub that you get in is actually because of the water, you keep shifting the weight in
room
the sub.
by room, the
so
pressure.
Now it starts rotating down a cliff, like an underwater cliff, and it starts going in, and like genuinely, like Adriana and I both on the first not even IMAX screening were like, I saw like a whole row of us transition to this hand over mouth, like just like watching, and you couldn't like tense. And I remember like as that really starts progressing, and after he gets the thing and it really dials up like the oh shit, I genuinely was like, I need to remember to breathe. Like I need to remember, or my lungs will implode. But like it was genuinely one of the best things I've seen on a movie, to the point that like, and again, I'll let someone else talk about some of the steps else that come, but like as that concluded, I welled up the first 3 times I saw this movie at that point.
Oh, so you saved your tears when I saw it.
Well, like again, like it's like I still had that emotion, like I felt it inside, but it's like it's not in like it is emotional, but like it's not to that degree. I think to me it was a double whammy of like just like the magnitude of that, but it kind of touched on the themes you were just saying about the things that you roll your eyes about the destiny and the will. That to me is what makes this sort of so special, and unique, and a standout for me is like, yes, they reaffirm it a lot, but like as much as it is about destiny, like everyone says, it's he is the living manifestation of destiny, the whole bit. It is the pure will to refuse to sacrifice anything, and what he's willing to do in order to do the right thing. And so literally like the extent that he goes into this sequence, and as he starts floating back up to the ice, because he doesn't make it in a good way. He gets there, but not properly.
Literally the ring of death for like what the 5th time in this franchise, we're like revitalizing him.
I think to me that was the combination of like how spectacular that was, with just like that sheer will just like hit me, and I was like, God damn, like it got me, and I totally did not expect that. I totally didn't expect
very
that.
Powerful imagery too, like
beautiful
when he's
shots
descending again, like with the flares, and like I was saying to Shea, it's like in a movie when somebody pulls up to an office, you see their car pull up, now they're in the office, and I was like, is he going to pull up to the submarine, go wipe it off, see the name, and now he's in it? No, it shows him trying to find a hole, and you're like, oh my God, like you're thinking if I was there, I would have bitched out already. But when you're like, he's trying to open the hatches that are rusted shut, and he finally gets in, and he's like trading oxygen and water and the pressure, and like now the ships get, it was like, it was such an unsurmountable task, and I was getting so tired in a good way watching it, being like, I could never.
We would have died as soon as we got out. Like we would have got out, we would have got chopped up by the other subs.
The torpedo bit, which we'll get to, is like only Tom Cruise with the backpack could fit. You and I would not fit, period. So, but yeah, like when he's going back to the surface and he's like rotating and the camera rotates with him, like a lot of great technical stuff there. It was like symbolizing like an as above, so below, like a rebirth. Like there's all this like very religious feeling in that middle act. I was like,
it looks like he's falling.
He fell back to the earth and he's coming back up to the surface, and it was like, it's so
the camera shift at that
simple, but ultimately effective. Like, and it looked gorgeous. Like
that whole sequence to me, it was like, it's like what I was thinking of when I said highest highs. Like that is to me like one of if not the best set piece in all of the movies. Like it just, like you said, kind of took me by surprise, took my breath away.
Literally.
But was, just so tense and like locked in, like kind of, you forget your body and where you are and stuff. And just for a movie that at other times is so just like hand-holdy and like we're explaining everything and we're going to over-explain everything and show you this and that and talk through everything, to then just go into this 10-minute long sequence where there's no dialogue, like you're just watching him do this task step by step. Just fantastic and like such a risky thing too. But yeah, the one tiny little gripe I have
two, including this one, but
it could have been so perfect if they had kept it completely dialogue free. But there's one moment where he just like is looking for a way out and notices the torpedo hatches and
silos.
Like says out loud torpedo or whatever,
torpedo tube.
Yeah. And I think a bunch of Quebecois people in the theater were like, oh, like they kind of perked up a bit because they're like, that Tom Cruise, he's a smart guy. I'm completely alienating the French group here, but I felt like there's like a good chunk of the theater that was like, oh, like they appreciated him because otherwise it's a guy pulling on a hatch, but we would have figured it out.
Well, but that's the thing. Like I knew that
signal
too.
It.
Like even from the last movie, because we watched them load them. Like it's a whole thing in that sequence because they're like load the torpedo tube.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I knew what that gate was as soon as I saw it earlier in the scene.
Also, too, my second gripe with that scene, because it was perfect. You're like, oh, it's 10 minutes. I feel like it's almost closer to 30 if you go from him entering the water and whatnot. But when he gets in there, very like arbitrarily, I feel like they did the flashback to the first movie where they're all alive and well and it starts sinking. And it's like, you're in a sunken submarine. I don't need you to show us it's sinking because we, again, already saw it, but B, it's implied this sank in 2012, as they explained many times.
They've said multiple times, the crew of the
crew didn't survive.
Well,
but there's dead bodies in a sunken submarine. That doesn't need explanation. Even if you didn't know why it was sunk, but the movie tells you.
It was a fun jump scare where it's like the guy's pointing at him, and I think that could have stayed in, but then it points at him and instead of cutting to him going, it cuts to him going, and it goes to like a montage, and I'm like, God, we were doing so well. And then again, 10 minutes goes by and it goes torpedo. And to be fair, I thought it kind of funny, but then after I was like, wow, it was such masterful cinema, no dialogue. And you're like, well, then I'm saying like a torpedo tube. And I was like, oh yeah. But yeah, it was that little torpedo thing, kind of funny, but the flashback mainly that really, again, where I was like, we were going in such a vibe, in such a tense vibe. Again, running water that entire time when I had to pee, forgot. Like just perfect cinema. And then that flashback, I was like, how long is this going? Like I checked my watch. Like I think it was the first watch check I had because I was like, that was going so smooth. Their second watch check, I think. And then they hit that flashback, and it's so unnecessary. Dead bodies sunk. They say 30 times in 2012. It sunk in the Atlantic Ocean or whatever. Like just a little hammy. So
well, and I wonder too, like again, because I know they do test these movies like a lot, and I wonder how much like if there was just like audience confusion, if you don't know that that's a torpedo, you're like, why is he going like, because that's not a normal door, like it's sizably different than all of the other ones. If there was maybe this like gap of confusion where people are like, what is he doing? But even if you show him open and you do it relatively quickly or something, show him or leave one open that he swims by, and you can be like, oh, there's a torpedo in there.
But they do have that he opens one and there's a torpedo,
right? But I mean, the time between him identifying that's the way I'm going to go out, and that's still like a minute and a half between those two things, because that's when he has to swim across and like other things start falling. So if there would be confusion, but like even then I'm like, I don't know, like on the like low end of the audience understandability and the people that go to these test screenings, I have no idea. But I agree for sure that it kind of like detracts like very minorly though, for sure. It's just like a bump and you're like, and then he pulls you right back down.
I do want to hop in on that too, is like as a fan of the Pierce Brosnan James Bond movies, I really had this like awful vision, like my final premonition for that scene was, he goes,
Oh,
torpedo. And he then finds a way to arm one and launches himself back to the surface, and there's an explosion. So I appreciate the restraint. And again, the scene and the film craft where he's, it's like he can't fit through with his frogman suit. So he starts cutting it up to keep just the oxygen. And you can see he's cold, and you forget, he's in the
Bering Sea.
Yeah, the Bering Sea in the Arctic. And you're like, oh man, again, like balls to the wall, awesome. And then surely enough, the part where everyone really wins once he finally gets out and the thing's sinking. And also they say it so many times where they're like, every second is a % off you living, and you're already at like very low percentage.
Yeah.
So you feel it right when that moment the thing's going down, he just is getting out, and then one of the torpedoes grabs his oxygen bag.
It was the tail of the
and he just rips the mask off. And now when his percentages were low in the frogman suit that kept him warm and oxygenated with the nitrogen off the diffuser or whatever, he's now just raw dogging like the ultimate climb. And like, I think I'm like raw dogging a flight is compared to that. It was like, man, just think of all these people that are like, I do Tough Mudder. It's like Ethan Hunt kicks your ass.
He has to keep breathing out the whole
I was
hold your breath.
He can't hold his breath, so he has to.
Part of me even thought too when they said that, it's like, oh yeah, what good is the warm oxygen tank with the nitrogen? Because he has to hold his breath anyways.
It's a good thing Tom Cruise can hold his
6
breath
minutes
for 6 minutes.
Yeah, you really felt the underwater acrobatics compared to that movie where they introduced that 6-minute thing. I feel like even though this was all like clearly a very well orchestrated soundstage and set, I do feel like they had so many more like long takes of him underwater doing like deep diving, like I don't know, shit,
Yeah.
I know he wasn't holding his breath that whole time, but I really felt like the way they edited that scene compared to the scene in the other underwater part, it was way less chopped, and they were.
Are you talking about in a different movie? What are you?
The Mission Impossible, the one where he famously.
Okay, you're talking about it. Okay,
sorry, in the other movie where like that was.
There's not another underwater.
No, well, that was like the bit where it's like I learned to hold my breath for 6 minutes, and
because he couldn't bring a tank into that one,
and you also couldn't tell because it was quite edited around it. And like the scene, like it doesn't. Where this
he did it in an unbroken take, and they chopped it up to get for the pacing.
And in this movie, it's like even though it's not like that's not the point, he has the oxygen tank for all the scenes. I do feel like him, kind of like as we'll talk about later on the plane, him just navigating a consistently like zero gravity underwater floaty balancing act, like the set's rotating, so he's like now planning how to jump A to Z instead of A to B, and I do think like that, and the plane scene in the end, they mirror each other in these different ways where he's so like the center of the frame a lot, where everything's rotating and fucked up around him, and then the plane, same thing. It's like he's like floating, he's literally flying, he's literally floating in the sea, like he's so not grounded ever, and he's just making it happen. It is like exhaustingly awesome. Like
I wanted to ask, do you have anything on this, because I want to use this bit to transition to the editing. I don't know if you have anything lingering on the sub before I move on to that, but I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, the editing in this is really solid, I felt.
Yeah.
But then I read all these criticisms, and the thing that there was parts, and I wanted to tee up the conversation on the editing problems that I feel like I saw expressed were these flashbacks.
Yeah.
Which to me is more of a director decision than an editing one. Like you're saying, we need to remind the audience here, so put that in. And again, frankly, the dissolves of phase. Like if you're gonna do it, I'd rather be a blink and an eye. But then there's the sequences. There's two of them that I really stood out to me when I thought of those. Was when he goes into the little box to talk to the entity. I thought the editing with that was really solid, and particularly jumping a little bit ahead, but the very end when they like upload the thing and they snip the wire and pull the thing, that is masterful. And I watched it specifically the third and fourth viewings. I purely am kind of was like watching the audience. And the actual like audible gasp when the light turns green, she snips. She goes, Ethan, snips wire, and like there's there's like an audible bit, and that only works that way if you nailed that editing of that scene. And so I was like, I understand the mixed bag of it, but to me that was more of like probably impositions from, again, these test screenings.
Actually, I want to say when the thumb drive lights up, they said they had 100 milliseconds, and that was clearly 1.5 seconds.
Brandon knows because his bladder was exploding.
I could feel the tension. I was like, I don't know, the optics lighting. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I agree with you there. The quick cuts for that were like they register because you are so dialed in.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't register if you were checked out. Otherwise, you blink and miss it.
Yeah, that was the crowd reaction. Like, literally, I'm like, oh, like I just was getting at the crowd reaction of like, oh, how well that worked on those people. But go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, you said the flashbacks and stuff is more of a direct. Like, I think it's both. Like, the way they're cut and the way they're inserted, when, how long, like all of that is part of editing, right? But yeah, I do agree there there are some moments that are like very well done, very well cut, very well edited, but I don't know. The third time around watching it, there was a bunch of things that I noticed where I was like, we could cut this. We don't need to linger on this long, like all of that. So those like little flaws kind of were more apparent. I
definitely felt like there's no deleted scenes in this movie. Again, I know I'm the pacing one here.
There was a 4-hour cut of this.
Oh my goodness, because I felt like they did
like a 4-hour cut. It was the assembly cut, but it was 4 hours.
I felt like they left a lot in, and I feel like when the movie is final, you do that. But knowing at the end it's not final, I was like, you could have sped around this a little bit, buddy. Like you could have.
Well, that's like we talked about this a little bit on the way here, where I was like, I wanna once I give it my 5th watch, but at home where I can like take notes and like actually like process
I would never
a little
watch
bit.
That like 4 times in a row.
Well, but like I think like because I genuinely don't know what I like again all of the flashback, all of the like heavy, like the moment, for example, like the Shea wig, I'm like, cut that whole bit about your gym. I don't need any of that. There's definitely those parts I definitely agree with didn't need to be in there, but I'm pretty adamant on, at least with all these experiences, about those mission debriefing. Like those to me always worked for me. I'd never had issues with that, but those are extended chunks of the time. But I genuinely want to go back because like I don't know if I noticed those small things other than when they were obvious. Like again, I didn't need 5 flashbacks of the night falling from mission 1 and all of that. Like all of that I agree could have been pulled, but I don't know like if you have other.
I would cut President Angela Bassett like 100%. Looking at a picture of her son and being like, what, like all of the bits.
Her son at the end also, what a waste of screen time.
Like that too.
Mom?
Like they kind of treat it as this like big character moment, but we don't really know or care about her beyond her role as president.
She's a mother, goddammit.
And but I agree, like, because it's interesting because like I'm okay, like I like, for example, the use of these like character actors in it purely with design specific roles, and I'm okay with Angela Bassett being there specifically just to have the pressures of that whole situation, and like I won't get into the weeds on all of the specifics, but like to add that added pressure to the mission, I'm totally okay with that. But I agree for sure. It's like I don't need to care about her for her role to work.
Very similar note, because we were talking about how it was just like, again, reiterating the intensity for everybody involved. There's that naval captain, and Ethan Hunt gives the president's letter to, and it says like 1984,
May 22nd, 1996, and it's the release date of the very first Mission Impossible.
And that's cheeky. I'll keep it, sure. But then when the mission's over at the end, they're like, by God, they've done it. It cuts back to her looking at that note, and again, it symbolizes like people not taking action, and her like.
I think she's looking at a message that came in saying everything.
I think the scene starts with her holding the note, looking at like 1994.
Yeah, she's got
and
the
then
note,
he
and
brings
then
in like the entity was defeated, ma'am, and they all read their like fax machine copy, and they're like, God bless Ethan Hunt. But it starts that scene again, like it shows her like basically when Ethan is starting that part of the mission, looking at that letter kind of longingly, cuts the mission, and then later when we cut back to her, she's still looking at that letter, and then they bring her the fax saying like, we've defeated the entity. And again, I kind of like, you could have just started with the guy coming in with that. You don't have to show me for that 5 seconds like 1994 is really big for like
but like those to me are so insignificant. Like I don't care.
No, I'm a nitpicky little bitch.
Like, and again, but again, like it really is like Sure, like I agree, I didn't need it, but it didn't hurt me either. And I feel like that's where the subjectivity part of it's like it really depends how much this bothers you and how much it doesn't. And I don't think you're wrong to be bothered by that, because there's like, I genuinely understand if you watch this movie, even if you're as fan as big as me, and you feel disappointed. Like, I get it.
Yeah, just a little bit of bloat. But on the note of like reveals and like additives that may or may not have been necessary, I did find it funny and like kind of corny. Not like the 1 in 1,000 rate of survival, but when they reintroduced the guy who designed the safe, the vault from the first movie, the Black Vault. And it, like
William Dunlop.
Yeah, it was a funny little reveal, and like it kept like doubling down on the same joke of like you know, where it's like they think like, oh, we've ruined this guy's life, and when he lets him off the hook, being like, yeah, if you guys didn't basically ruin my career at the CIA, I would have never found the love of my life. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And then he pulls the knife out, and that knife is what Benji uses to stabilize his punctured lung. I was like, the probability game, and I know it's like, this is Mission Impossible, but so many like character beats like that, not just the crazy action, like what are the odds he survives that, but like the character, like causality, like the whole, yeah, it definitely felt like there's like plot armor on a lot of these people, but also for the finale, it's like we'll get to that, but I'm jumping around. But yeah, just the Black Vault character. Thought he was really funny, but I actually started to find every time they cut back to him for a moment, it was starting to like detract a little bit from like the ongoing, because they were just being like, remember that time when, you know, and he's a character.
So speaking of Donlo, I feel, and like going back to callbacks or retcons and stuff that worked and didn't work, I think he was a highlight of things like bringing him back in this like 30 years later, super inspired choice. But then I think making him and his wife a part of the team and they're coming to South Africa was like, you're almost giving this character too much
to do
importance, but then they need someone to defuse the bomb. So it's like
this is where I think like because I thought about that too. Like I've seen people like criticizing that, and he is such like, if you take that part of it, for sure, like I think his presence in the movie is really good and enjoyable, and like I liked all of that stuff. But aside from that, I think I mentioned this to you last night too. I think what he does is he like, okay, so if it's not him or someone like that, like if it's not someone we already know, then this semi-important role is going to be filled by another character actor. It's going to be a Nick Offerman of like any of those people. It's going to be someone like random like that. And which like, okay, maybe is fine, but this is a movie that already has a lot of even new characters that are these character actors that are just here to exist for a specific purpose. But what I think is that, especially when you get to the end, like his character functionally serves more of a utility than some other members on the team, like as his wife that progresses. Well, not, but like, okay, but his wife is there because he's there. Yeah, it's not like that makes sense. I don't need that to be an example, but like my thing with him is like, we know, we know with him, like I feel like automatically, and even without all the flashbacks, he brings like, I don't need you to explain who this is. He doesn't need to have credibility. I understand why he has credibility. They even kind of do that naturally when Benji's like, oh my God, you're the guy that you designed the whole thing. Like, so he immediately gets a level of street cred that doesn't need some sort of backstory. So when he contributes, like when he does these smart things, like you don't need some build to that. We don't need to like learn who this new character is at the Sosa station and why you've been in it. Like we know, and again, the movie shows us too much. But like it builds like that sort of credibility. I think that you again would have just been another throwaway character where I think they had 4 or 5 new ones.
You are right.
My problem is not putting him in the Sosa station, making him pivotal for that bit. It's after that. It's when they come along with them to South Africa and they're like, we're part of the team now. And it's like,
but his only utility is defuse the bomb.
I know,
like,
but
he only has one bit. It's not like
that's
he's
what
an
I'm
action
saying. It's
scene.
it's like a chicken and egg situation of like, we need him there to defuse the bomb, so he's coming with us. But otherwise, like, we wouldn't need him.
But why would he stay? Like, well, just from a character.
But
like,
why would he
stay?
go with them? Why wouldn't he just go
Because his
somewhere
house burns
else?
down. He's got nowhere
I know,
else.
but why
And the
wouldn't he
world
just,
might
like-
end if he doesn't be there to help.
I was asking the same question, and I'm like, yeah, why didn't he leave his wife behind? Why'd she come with him? And then I'm like, why didn't he stay? And you just reminded me.
Yeah, their house burned down. And like, this is, again, like
in the Arctic. Like,
apocalyptic. This is the end of the world. Like, the base they go to, people are abandoned because they're like, we're going to die in the next 2 hours.
He also had stakes because he was the one that was like, I was telling the government for years, you're telling me it's
But
so
it's
he had
like
that, you know.
2 more expendable, untrained people that are just like, now we're responsible for these people. Like, to me, it doesn't really make sense. Like, they're just there out of plot necessity, and that's fine.
I don't think I agree with that at all.
I didn't have like too big an issue with it. It just it felt like they gave those characters more importance than they needed to.
Yeah.
Well, like, again, it helps them get there, and then they, like, again, come along. Like, if there was some extended periods where, like you said, like, oh, we have this, like, dead weight of the thing. Like, no, we literally leave from the Arctic to go right to the next set piece. So it's not, like,
to agree with both
of
you guys. I feel like to
you're the middle of the Venn diagram right now.
Because I definitely like emotionally agree with Adriana. I felt like they were a bit of a blow, but when you said, well, they were the more necessity to the team.
Yeah.
Because there's the 2 distractingly like sexy new characters. There's like the like hot blonde Asian French girl,
right?
And then there's like the studly like darker guy, and he's by the end of it when he's like, I'll stay up here with the bomb. I was like, oh yeah, what the hell are you doing? What have you done the last 45 minutes?
He's the only character,
and
I
even
would say.
In the end, when they all give each other a glance in the street, I was like, who is this guy? I forgot he was in the last movie. When they show him at the start escorting the prisoner, and then Ethan Hunt does the stand down thing, I was like, do they just co-op like a security guard? And then you're like, no, dude, he's in the last movie. It's like, fuck if I remember that. So to me, like,
they should have added another flashback where they showed him so young.
Well, and that's it. It's maybe I did need that, but to your point, like I fully agree. I felt like them coming on was giving them too much business. But when the bomb thing, like you said, they want to speed run us agreeing he could maybe defuse the bomb. But then also compared to again the sexy French girl. When she's doing the like lung surgery, she's kind of just hands. And so is the other guy. When he's like, I just need hands to hold the bomb. They're literally just hands by the end of it. They have no character traits. It's not like, oh, the security guard guy was like a hired gun. You know what I mean? They were the filler.
Well, he to me is the only one that I would say, like, from a plot and compelling perspective, is the only one that is like his wife is there again, like, because she's there. Like, you're not gonna leave your wife behind kind of vibe. But she's not like a utility that in that such a significant way. But he's the only one I feel like that gap. Even her, like, she's the singular like soldier of the group. But then that's the whole bit where he's like, does anyone have medical experience? And the girl's like, no, I don't. And she's like, I just kill people. And he's like, I'll make that work. And so, like, again, I think the Benji component and that health component is so critical to that sequence, and it not only like from a beat
pressure
and kind
cooker.
Of like it adds another. Again, it's the mission. They can't just get in there and quickly hack in and then sit and wait. Exactly.
A collapsing lung will defuse
I think like
the bomb.
everyone plays a role that needs to. Again, like, to me, the wife is just like, you're not leaving your wife behind. She's a tack on. That's fine. But like, Dagal or whatever is the only one I think that I'm like, you don't really need to be on the team at all.
Why would they need Donlo? That, like, they already know the plan is to do the drive thing, blink of an eye, whatever. What is his role in that? They don't need him. Why wouldn't they just be like, sure, you can come along because your house burned down, but maybe stay in the car? Like, what? Because it's just.
Well, they were all staying back.
People who are untrained, don't know how to fight, don't have any like they're not trained agents.
Yeah, well, okay, but there's a definite answer to this. He was not. It was supposed to just be Ethan that went in. They were all just going to be going into the vault, right? That was the plan. They were all going to be going to the vault. Ethan was going to give Gabriel the thing. That, like, we talked about this last night too. He went into that thinking he was going to die, and then when Kittredge and Shea Wiggum show up, derails the whole thing.
They knew Gabriel was going to be there, probably not alone with backup. Like, it's a dangerous situation. You're bringing civilians.
They were going to give him what he wanted. That was not contrived.
I don't want to get too hung up on this because, like, in the moment, it's fine. It's cool that they're there. He's a good presence in the movie. I liked it overall. I'm just, if you start to think about it, it's like, why was he there? There was no need for it logistically, like, from an in-narrative perspective.
The real answer is the screenwriter wrote that there was 3 cores that need to be held, and
that definitely was added. They would have gone the other way with that. They're like, we have all these characters. How can we?
If they had one core, the guy, what was it? The handsome security guard guy, he would have just been standing there being like, the coast is still clear. When he's like, I'll stay behind. I'm like, are you is he going to get shot to like, block a like, where is this going? And so I agree with you completely, but I also agree, like, I rather the CIA guy be the bomb guy, because Dagon could not do that. I would not believe that.
Well, I think the last bit, because then we'll transition to the plane. But I think
to the real villain,
my thing with it is like, it's actually like, I almost feel counter to that. Like, you guys like, where is the forced plot thing? Like, I feel like this criticism is coming from both sides. Like, why did they need to be there for some plot contrived reason, as opposed to this is apocalyptic stakes? They have no reason to stay at this otherwise unexceptional Sosa station. I would go.
But they could go anywhere is the thing.
Yeah, but I would go to help. Like, that's the whole bit of everyone makes the choice. Like, they're doing this, they're because they want to, not because they have to. And I think the characters establish all of that.
I get it. I think, the movie's always, it's like a ragtag crew kind of feel.
Crackerjack unit, as Kittredge calls it.
I died at that.
Everything. I think every screening that always got a little
that
pop
touches
from
on what
everybody.
we're talking about, where it's like this old man, his wife, and like 3 convicts, and Ethan Hunt, who's been like beaten and chained up the last half hour. It's like real crackerjack.
Who literally like either died or his heart stopped, at least for some.
This movie too, unless it's like amazing action, all the character scenes, I swear to God, are shot in like a close up, and like it was a lot of close up, especially near the end. I get why, but that was a scene where they go real crackerjack unit. They show a wide shot of them all standing in a row. They look like, if you've seen the movie Atlantis, when they show like all the cartoon characters who are like, oh, we're going to breach into Atlantis, and they have like, they all look like they're wearing like their khakis and are,
right.
Like, I legitimately thought, I was like, this looks like a Disney movie, like where they're like lining up to go to the center of the earth. And then that's when everything goes sideways. Like, look at your crackerjack team. They do the wide shot and they're sitting there like, we've been apprehended.
Well, and again, not to, because I'm not even digging on the specific bit with them, but I think the last bit I want to say on this is that, and this could be just me being like, this is a movie that you can enjoy on a very surface level, or like the whole franchise or whatever, frankly. But this is where I think that concept narratively really is added if you think about it. And that's like the whole thing is like, even if they touch on this a bit again in the last movie where they're explaining it all to Grace, they're like, we're not forced to be here. Like, we want to be here. And that whole theme with Luther post plane is that idea, like, for a good future, you have to will it into existence. So again, like, giving the credit to that, that's why I think, like, from a story, not a plot, a story level, them making the choice to go with you in case there's something we can do, even then that works. And like that crackerjack unit shot of like some exceptional people and less exceptional people all coming together to save not even each other but the world, like that is all thematic with that. So again, like, there's those things there if you want it, but you don't need it at all in the movie. But I want to make sure we touch on the plane, because it's so funny that we're deep in here on this. But the plane, like, and I love just the sub bit. Like, all of us, I think, agree is the sub's our favorite bit, which is crazy to me in a movie where Buddy's just hanging off plane, dangling on real planes and flying. But go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, because you said the Luther thing, like his dying lines are like, "I'm right where I'm supposed to be. You're right where you're supposed to be." The destination of it all, like the final destination of it all. But
you brought this up twice, and I'm gonna die.
But what I was getting at, because
I want this light to collapse in on me. All right.
The mic impales me. That's our next episode. But because we're like an hour in, and we still haven't even got to the final set piece. But what I was getting at when we were like getting really lost in the weeds just now, I was like, the real villain is my opinion is, I think the weaker villain of Gabriel. The fact that he does the Wile E. Coyote nuclear bomb twice, and it's the same resolution twice. I was getting so mad, and it felt so arbitrary. Like, we have 10 seconds to get to the door. I'm like, did but like, could Luther have had 10 seconds? Probably it wouldn't matter. He's locked in. But they did the same move twice. Well, he
couldn't get out, right?
And I said this to Sam.
No way they made it there in 10 seconds.
No, I believe the security guard guy could have made it.
I would love to see Dunlow and his wife doing the mad sprint. They definitely filmed something.
Well, and oh yeah, because when they see him after, they're covered in dust, meaning like they got blown down the elevator shaft. But yeah, so my thing was like when we were leaving, it was like it felt like Gabriel was kind of a weak villain for a lot of things. And part of it is like he was spamming the same move where it was like monologuing next to a bomb and be like, "Good luck, Ethan Hunt," and puts up his glasses and walks away. And then so I was like, I don't know, I think Gabriel, the real villain, is like just like he was so unimportant, I felt. And even at the end, as we're getting to, the plane sequences were amazing. But it gets starting to be like, again, Wile E. Coyote, Red Baron, Snoopy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where he's like literally trying to crash the plane without crashing the planes. And he's like, as long as you're alive, I'm going to get what I want. And I was like, my brother in Christ, you set off a nuke and you're trying to crash a plane and then go find it.
But see, all of that worked for me. Like,
crazy.
He's so over the top, just an evil guy.
And it worked for me, honestly, the more I saw the movie. Like, the more, because I agree definitely from a plot, like he's super one note. I do like that it's a little hammy, obviously, Nick Cage guy, I love the hammy stuff, but like it became, and I think watching this with Ty yesterday for his first viewing, I knew so much of that he would adore, and he did. And especially like his death in that plane scene is so perfect.
I was gonna ask you about that.
To me, it's so perfect because I feel like they kind of knew, like, well, certainly from the reactions of him, because there was a similar criticism of in the last one, but like they certainly knew that. So to have this like one note maniacal evil mustache twirling
only
guy,
one of us has a parachute,
and then like kill himself like a goober, like was so funny to me, like, and genuinely like gets like ooh, and then a laugh, and like he's like hee hee hee, like, but he literally, like me and you, I remember when we watched when he runs away and he drives away from that sequence when it all starts going to shit, he goes, catch me if you can, he said. Like, I love
it's like
that.
Green Goblin and Spider-Man, like, you'll never catch me, Spider-Man.
And it's like the more you just like, again, like not that you should have to do this, because again, this you don't. But like the more I just accepted that, the more fun I had with that performance. Because yes, he's definitely like a henchman, but just like with more screen time. And
big henchman.
He's literally just a nuisance.
I think.
And so for him to die in such like an insignificant way, like just meaningless way, is so funny.
Almost every line or bit or like moment of his, especially in that last bit, me and Ty were just like cracking up, like because I don't know, there's something just so,
even when he puts on the helmet and then he jumps into the other cockpit and then he's like, Ethan, like he's just,
or like when Kittredge is like, what am I missing here? Time. It's like
time.
And then that's when Kittredge starts putting it together, and then they have the big shoot off. Like it genuinely, like every time I watched it, I enjoyed it more and more every time. And again, getting to watch it with Ty, because I knew Ty's bit of the last one. I don't know if you heard us talk about it, but he said pre this movie with Dead Reckoning, he's like, Gabriel is so just one note evil that if he grabbed the key on the train in the last movie, turned into a cloud of bats and went out the hole, Ty's like, I would have not been shocked by that at all.
It's nanotechnology, like whatever, dude. I did find that too, because like all his lines, especially towards the end, they're all like 80s one-liners. Because the thing he says when they set off the 20-minute time bomb. And this is, again, back to my piss talk here. The 20-minute time bomb was 34 minutes, and the last 4 minutes were 9 minutes. But when they set us off the bomb, they do like the whole time thing.
I hope you bring this level of fine detail complaints to the Final Destination
I will
podcast next.
But the funny part was like, like when they're, the bomb's going and they're kind of like, well, Ethan Hunt, what are we doing here? And like, they're like really taking their time. I'm like, there's so much at stake here. Can we please get, but what I was getting at was he says that really corny line of like, it was good, I think, but he's like, I want you and all the people you love. And I thought he was going to say to die, to live, prosper. props
to live long lives in the world that I create.
And I was like, oh, you know what? You inverted my expectations of saying like, I want you and everybody you love to die. But he's like, to live long and prosper.
And he's like, tell me I win. Yes! And then he tells him, and then he goes, say it again. And that's what Shea was like, dickhead. Yeah, no, it was perfect. But yeah, just to also get on the plane stuff, I think that sequence was also so wild. And just like, again, at a level that was like, and we had this argument with Nick again, God bless him. I hate straw manning when he's not here to actually make his own cases, but like the realism of that. And I think like how that manifests is that like you can show his face because it's him. It's not, you're not trying to get creative camera angles to mask that and then therefore hurt the actual performance. But to me, it's the backdrop. Yeah. The only time it's CG is when the plane takes off, when he first gets run over and grabs it, because they obviously can't do that safely. And so like the dust and all that, that's definitely touched up. But once they start going and that's all real, like, again, this was my criticism with Dead Reckoning. I'm like, you do all these practical things, but then you keep CGing aspects of the background and it makes it look fake when I know that this was real. And this did not have that problem. No. And like just the component, especially when he gets on Gabriel's plane, which also there's so many like actually funny bits. Yeah. Like when he gets in the cockpit in the front, it's got none of this like the stuff he needs.
He's in the wrong cockpit. He's like, oh.
When he's on the first plane and his head pops.
Yeah. Like, the guy's turned so he doesn't see him. He pops his head and then just like tucks in. Everyone giggles. And then when he's getting on Gabriel's plane and he's steering it with his foot and then trying to get underneath and like grabs that. But then when Gabriel starts trying to buck him off and he starts doing it, the way they did the sound, especially as they were accelerating up, and just like the build of that and the pressure, like you can see it, like so many beautiful shots. And the one when the plane inverts and he's just like holding on to the parachute strap, it's like, oh yeah, cinema. Martin Scorsese meme Shea right there. Like, this is what it's about.
I like Nick and I differed a lot, but I was trying to have the Nick argument of like, well, like, because he's like, oh, you could just CGI so much of these, and I wouldn't care. Yeah. And I try to have that thought of like feasibility, right? Mm-hmm. And a thing that kept catching me being like, oh yeah, this is real. Because after kind of like Avatar, when that came out, everyone's like, what a great technical feat. But after about 30 minutes, your brain, your eyes, your mind, you're just like, oh, I'm just here. And same thing with that plane scene. 10 minutes in, I completely forgot about how hardcore that was until maybe you see like Tom Cruise's cheeks are peeling at the like, and you go, oh, we're doing this. And I'm like, do you think they could have just got like a wind cannon for that? And I'm like, no, shut up. Like the intrusive thought was the Nick thought, like, you just done that green screen, the wind cannon, like, you know.
But then the background, right? Like, okay, yes, it'll give that effect, but it'll give that effect on a green screen that looks fake, and it's all of those components. And like we touched, like that's the thing. I think again, you can't measure it, but you can feel it. Yeah. and it's the same thing with, like I said, with the sub scene, like the whole thing of like his face and that. Like I said, that if they do the CG version of that, it becomes like the Iron Man helmet where they're just doing a shot of his face and the mask, and that's how you're getting emotion, but you're cutting me away from the whole sequence, and that hurts it. And this is where like I hope, like, I need someone, whether it's even in the Mission franchise, like the mantle of this needs to be taken up, because I think this is such a key component. Like, it's why I love these movies. It's what I love most about the McHugh era. And I think like it just like, again, like I loved watching everyone yesterday, just literally like holding their mouth, leaning forward, hands on their heads. Like people were losing it at these bits. And I'm like, this to me is why I love movies, to come here and just have such a pure, great time with that. I think is really it.
Speaking of the mantle, what are the odds that Tom actually doesn't do another one of these? Like,
and who would you want to replace him? My vote's Glenn Powell.
Yeah, Hangman, bro. Well, I love Glenn Powell. I'm a big Glenn Powell stan. He was like my favorite character in Top Gun. But I I would have said no, like going into this, like, because he's 60 something now, like early 60s at this
I want
point.
Jeremy Renner with one leg to be the new
Jeremy Renner. But like I think like I said, my problem with this was all of these things you did to contrive a final movie and then make it feel very not final at the end of it. And again, like, I don't know really. I genuinely, because people were like, I've seen like big, like I was like big accounts so that were like the last mission movie, and I'm like, I don't, well, like no, like this will be rebooted, whether it's 20 or whatever. This is definitely not the last mission movie ever. But I don't know, like, if again, I genuinely have no idea, because if they can't keep escalating, and you can't, when your guy doing all this crazy stuff is going to be 65 at the earliest when you can start doing the next one, like, it's crazy. But if they do like a handoff, like, to me, that also, I'd be like, I don't know if he would do that. In the same way, like, he didn't come back to Top Gun for 30 years because he's like, I don't like any of the things that you guys are putting forward. It doesn't work. So like, he's not going to just come back as the elder statesman to pass the torch unless they do that in a way that he really is on board for.
I hope this ages like milk, and that happens 20 years from now. He is like the president's assistant. Like, you could have been the president, but you're too much of a loose cannon. Just like Maverick, like, you should be the Iceman's cap, or
we use Elon robots now to solve all our impossible missions.
We need an 80-year-old Tom Cruise to like have a child in 20 years time, like Rooster, to be like, you're my, I think what you were saying earlier, and to kind of like summarize and wrap up my thoughts on this, was it was compared to like The Dark Knight Rising. I really hoped, and I thought, like, after the whole de-escalating action, that they're going to go to some cafe in Europe and they'd be like, damn, we sure miss Ethan Hunt. He was the GOAT. And then they look across the table and he's talking to some hot chick.
Is there on vacation. And then Tom's like,
and then you hear the actual Dark Knight score chime in, and I got goosebumps thinking about that. I was hoping that's how they were going to play out our boy, because I was kind of like, he doesn't need to die. But like, because I joke, like, wish they blew him away at the end. But if there's almost a part where it's like, after all this, I think you've earned a little break, and then he just goes to a cafe, and his friends who see him in Europe also talking about wanting a wide shot. The ending, when they get I call it the Lord of the Rings Return of the King ending, where everybody shows up, walks into frame, goes, hi there, buddy, and
only acknowledge Tom, right? They never acknowledge. They never cross.
Well, they do. Breeze. I feel like they do kind of look around at each other.
Okay, I know.
Well, and so, but the point is, like, a wide shot, that would have been funny because there's this crowd of moving people, and then you have just seen like a pentagonal shape of all these people being like nodding, and then my other joke, I guess, wrapping up, is she hands him the basically what I call like the briefcase of Pulp Fiction, and it's the Entity, and it's just like, Godspeed. And then like, it was a good ending, but like, I definitely wish there was like a little bit more finality, and it could have just been like him, MIA in some nice country, taking a breath, and there's like a voicemail, maybe that's when he gets looted. Like, I think they could have done it a little less.
Well, you can't, again, he can't retire.
He can't.
He has to be killed. Like, it's the only way to stop. The only way you can end Destiny if it doesn't exist.
I hope the next movie is marketed as like another Swan Song crazy movie, and he dies in the opening 5. I would like legitimately like hang up my hat and be like,
it's mission 3, except he's the one that was captive, and then he gets fried by Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. Oh my God, we can fan pitch this next one.
I think we solved it.
Exactly. I'll call McHugh. Hey man, we got an idea. I think like I said, definitely on a high level, it's not the cap, like, ultimately, like for John Wick, for me, I love the 4th one, and I like, again, they're talking about doing a 5th one. Who knows how that's going to all come together? But for me, this isn't the cap that I wanted. If this is the end, and not even, like I said, for any like, you needed to do specific endings. Like, I just wanted, if this is the last one, I wanted to feel good. Like, just like, that was such a great time. And I'm like, there was a lot of great moments, and there was a lot of bumps along the way, but it was still good. Like, that's not how you want to close. So
I didn't actually mind the final sequence bit. Like, I think, him disappearing into a crowd is kind of fitting. But the part that didn't work for me was that most of these people, aside from Benji, are like new additions to the team. Degas was like just kind of so
Yeah.
so I don't even know how to describe it. Like he's just there, and suddenly he's part of the team. And
the French assassin was an op in the last movie. She was the bad guy.
I really like
Fast and Furious. Her basically.
She was the henchman's henchman.
I really like her, and she has like a really good presence.
She's the funnier one of the
But
group.
the impact of like they're looking around after this final mission. It just like, I don't know.
Oh, it didn't work for me at all.
No.
Like I didn't like, and I honestly the post him landing, and then like I feel like that the Luther thing goes on for a minute, and then they like. I felt like that whole like that I feels long at the end of that, and again for like I'm like I didn't it felt hokey. I did not like it. I liked it less every time I saw that part, and I'm like the only thing that makes it save that last note for me is that he does for a half second a fourth wall camera look as he walks past it, and I'm like I loved that. But yeah, like on a writ large, like, I just like again I wanted to feel a turn to everybody and be like, oh, like that's what I wanted to close at, and I did not close at that note. And so yeah, I mean I think we'll see. Well, I'm definitely not confident to say this is the last Mission Impossible movie ever, but I think definitely the last one for a bit. So we'll see on that.
I think my final statement is somebody who works as a video editor, and you send a client a video, you'll be like, oh, final draft V7, and I feel like this is final draft V7, and there's going to be final draft V8, 9, and it's going to Fast and Furious, because it shares a lot of DNA with Final Destination and Fast and Furious. If I'm being honest, there's like the implausibility, the sequelness, the team building.
And on that horrific note,
let's end
that I wildly cannot disagree with more. Thank you guys for coming. Thanks for being here in person, and thanks everybody for listening. Obviously you can tell the passion runs big here. And I love that part. Like just having this, like, that's what movies are, how they impact you. Like, so we sit in the same thing. We experience the same thing together, different takeaways, different things you love, different things you disliked. That's what it all is about to me. But if you do go to the movie theater and you, start recording the movie and you're asked to leave, and you don't, and then they have to pause the movie for 300 plus people in the IMAX theater to kick you out, just get up and go the first time. Let's not do that and pause a whole movie for everybody, guys.
Real story happened yesterday.
And on that note, this message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.